The answer is definitely no, it's never too late. It's just to get started. I went into intermittent fasting. I dropped a lot of kilos there. It really started working when I also started doing exercise, especially pump iron. That was really when it started. And I started to understand this thing about, you lose so much muscle mass after 50 that if you don't, do weights, that's a muscle mass that's going to be very difficult to recoup again. So I had no intentions of becoming a bodybuilder or anything like that. I just wanted to stay with my existing body mass so I don't have a problem standing up when I'm 70.
Welcome to Fit Hustle. I'm your host, Mohammed Aspar. Today we're diving into a story of resilience, innovation, and transformation. My guest, Brian, is a Danish entrepreneur who turned personal strategy into a mission to help others. After losing his father, he not only lost 25 kilos, but also created an AI-powered mental health platform that's changing how we approach emotional well-being. In this episode, we'll explore how cultural background, fatherhood, and personal loss can catalyze positive change. If you're struggling to balance mental health, physical fitness, and family life, this episode is for you. How does a dad turn a devastating loss into a revolutionary mental health solution while achieving the best fitness of his life? Let's find out from Brian himself. Taking care of yourself is non-negotiable, especially as a dad on the go. That's why I took BioSteel for hydration without the sugar crash. Use code MNYY1417 at checkout for up to 25% off. Let's prioritize health so we can be there for the ones we love. Brian, welcome to Fit That Hustle. Thank you for being with us today. Your journey from Kenya to Denmark is fascinating. How has your multicultural background shaped your perspective on mental health and family?
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, I mean, this thing about my cultural background, I was born in Kenya by Indian parents, and we came to Denmark when I was very, very small, together with my sisters. And one of the things that I've been working on since my first job has actually been working back in Africa, working on different projects there. And one of the things that I really realized very fast is that it's not very common with my background, both in Africa and in India, to speak about your emotions. It's actually something that people don't do. You're supposed to be hard, especially as a man or a boy, and not speak about emotions. So this thing about opening up is a Western thing, and even in the West, it's not even that common, especially not for boys. I mean, girls is the same, but especially for me being a male, I can see what kind of consequence that has with my cultural background, that I didn't have the ability to speak to someone growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally resonate with that because, like, with my background similar to the Indian background, Middle Eastern, I'm half Arab, half Persian. And, we went through that the same way with our family as well. You don't talk about your emotions, you don't talk about how you feel about things and all that. And yeah, and then when we were in Canada, it's kind of different, kind of learned that. And I felt that it's important that you need to talk about it, especially now that I have kids. And, when a child is quiet, they're not talking, whatever, they need to get into that habit of talking because it makes a big difference. Definitely. Great. So You've achieved a black belt in karate in your early years. What drew you to martial arts, and why did you eventually move away from it?
I think like many other people, I had a great upbringing, but it was chaotic in many ways. When we came from a different country, my parents didn't know how to speak Danish, had challenges adapting to the country. We also moved out of Denmark, moved in and lived in different countries after that. So it was quite chaotic, and my dad was not there for many years because he was working in Nigeria for many of the years when I grew up. Actually, one of the reasons why I joined karate was that, first of all, it was because of the fitness element. But then I found out that the structural approach towards karate was very good for my brain. So it's like katas, for example, where it's very structured approaches were really good in terms of giving me some of the structure that I didn't have in my young life. So I think that was kind of what kept me going. And also really liked the progression, that you could actually see how you progressed in a very easy manner. And also the last thing I would have to say is that what I learned from karate was this thing about you getting out of it of what you put into it. So if if you put more into it, you get more out of it. So the more you train, the more disciplined you are, the better you get. It's a very, very easy parallel to draw between discipline and output and how it made me feel. So that's what karate did. And, what I also liked about it, one thing that just comes to my mind is that although I really love working in teams, like on a football team or stuff like that, karate is very individual. So it's very much about your own performance compared to others, your peers. And that element was really good because I could kind of not hide myself within a team. It was me and only me to blame. And I think that kind of structure was good for me.
Yeah, I agree. I was also on black belt karate as well. I got black belt when I was like 9, and and the thing is that I really took from martial arts is respect. That's the main thing that I really resonates with me. The way you should respect your sensei, the way you should respect the others, your peers, very very important. And karate is a great lesson. I definitely agree with you. And now your father's passing was a pivotal moment in your life. How did that loss become the catalyst for both personal transformation and business innovation?
So my dad passed in 22, and he had been sick for a couple of years, but I think people that have had parents that have passed don't really believe in it until it actually happens. So I actually had 2 years to kind of get ready for it, but it never really hit me as that. But I remember specifically looking at my dad on one of the last days before he passed and seeing how his health really deteriorated very, very fast. And it made me really think about how we as people often take a stand against something when it's almost too late. Yeah. And that goes for both. So this thing about mental fitness is a part of fitness. So it's part of how you treat your body, how you treat your mind, and all these kind of things. It really triggered something when my dad passed. I mean, outside of the grief, which was terrible, and I can still feel it now. I'm sure people that have lost understand what I mean, is that, it's something that never goes away. But what I try to do is I try to figure out, so if I'm feeling this way, I wonder how other people are getting rid of their emotions. And with my cultural background, I started thinking, me as a 50-year-old male, who do I speak to? How do I even get to express my feelings? I mean, I can speak to my family and stuff like that, but and going to a professional was just so it was in the mid section of me needing to go to a professional. So it was kind of like in the middle. So it's like I need to speak to someone, but doesn't necessarily have to be a professional. So I kind of thought about started looking at online things, and I started seeing all the chatbots coming out saying you can write about things. And then I thought that maybe if we're working like in Africa and other places, we'll have a lot of people that won't be comfortable with writing. And even me, I was thinking, if I could get to speak to someone in a way, and I started calculating how much that would cost and who I can afford it. And it just drew me to AI because it was like, if we had to automate it in some way, we would have to use AI, and we'd have to use AI in a structured form. So sometimes, I don't know, it was kind of like a very natural process that I kind of thought that, this loss I must find an outlet. I started researching it, and we were already developing solutions in my company. So I thought, let's do this. Let's go all in on this. Let's build a solution where people can actually speak to someone. It's primarily, my loss was something that we can see on our voice, but a lot of people speak about loss, their partners, their kids, their parents, their friends. But many of the times is that if you get to speak to someone, it means that your problem does not get bigger. It may not get smaller, but it definitely doesn't get bigger. Yeah. Sure. So that's what I felt working on the voice bot. So I was one of our first customers trying to talk to the voice bot about a lot of things. I thought it gave me great perspective and another view, and even disagreed with me at sometimes, like in a pleasant and good way, but kind of saying, maybe you should flip your thoughts and think about it in this way instead. All that was very useful to me. So that's what it triggered. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know this or you follow your life in that way, but I kind of, sometimes something happens in my life, and then after some time, I found out why it happened. Yeah. And that there was a reason why it happened. And it doesn't make sense in the time between, but suddenly it makes sense. And that's what I found out with my dad and his life and stuff like that. That, if all that had not happened, I wouldn't have come to the stage where I'm currently are. So things suddenly made sense. The grief is still unbearable, but it kind of made more sense.
That's amazing. But hey, sometimes things happen like that. It may not be a loss, but it might be like something that just happened, a situation, and then it just led you to that opportunity. So, but with you, it was through the loss of your father, and it got you to this point. But of course, I'm sorry for your dad's loss. But it's making you a better person. You're solving. If you have a solution for others, it's great. You've said you're in the best shape of your life now, even better than during your karate days. What sparked this transformation?
So going back to my dad, so this sparked a lot of thoughts around me, how I want to live my life, how I want to try to make sure that I don't catch a major health problem. So I had cancer when I was about 20 years ago, stage 4 cancer. I kind of got the feeling that if I can do something about it to try to avoid it, I simply have to. Yeah. So going back to my karate days where it's all about me. So if something happens, I can blame myself if it happens. Well, knowing that things happen even to the most fit people, but at least then I can say that I tried my best to avoid it. Yeah. So that's actually when it started. And then also another thing is that I realized when my dad passed that for 50 years, I always had a person to support me in anything I did. And that makes my willingness to take risks much higher. Suddenly, with my own family, I'm the provider of my family, which means that if something happened to me and me taking risk, my dad has always been there, and my mom. Luckily, I still have my mom, but they were always there. So I kind of thought, okay, so now suddenly it makes sense for me to live until I'm 90 plus. Yeah. And also I started doing calculations, looking at my family history and said, okay, in my family history, males are never more than 75 years old. Yeah. And at that point, that was 25 years. So do I want to live more than 25 years? For sure. Yeah. So all this triggered me starting to do research around healthcare and how do you take care of you? And the first thing I Googled was, is it too late when you're over 50 to do something about it? And the answer is definitely no, it's never too late. It's just to get started. So what I did was I started saying, I was 25 kilos more than I am now. So I needed to go into a calorie deficit. But I was not ready to go into a calorie deficit in the beginning. So I kind of looked at what can I do to kind of limit the number of hours that I started eating. So I went into intermittent fasting. I did it from 11:30 to 7:30 at night. That was the only time I ate. I did that for the first 6 months, got my body kind of used to. I dropped a lot of kilos there. I definitely did. But it really started working when I also started doing exercise, especially pump iron. That was really when it started. And I started to understand this thing about, you lose so much muscle mass after 50 that if you don't, do weights, that's a muscle mass that's going to be very difficult to recoup again. So I had no intentions of becoming a bodybuilder or anything like that. I just wanted to stay with my existing body mass so I don't have a problem standing up when I'm 75 and stuff like that. So that was kind of my stage. And I suddenly started talking to people about it because it was really working for me. And I think a bunch of my friends have lost a lot of kilos now and are really, really fit. I mean, my body age is shockingly low, which is really nice for me. I mean, I really love it, but it also means that I need to stay disciplined because at this age, you don't have to do too many skip days before it has a consequence.
Man, I'm telling you, like losing 25 kilos is no small feat. No small feat. Like that's huge. Like you had the strategy, you put it in a diet in place, you do it intermittent fasting. But what kept you motivated?
I think this thing about my goal of being the oldest male in my family history was actually a big thing. It may sound weird to other people, but when you are plus 50 and you suddenly see that your time is running out, you try to do whatever you can to prolong that time. Especially, I have two kids, a son of 19 and a daughter of 16, and I had them pretty late. And that ultimately means that when you start calculating how many years you have with your grandchildren, for me, it just meant that I need to do whatever I can to have as much time and also quality time. I'm not talking about 10, 15 years in a hospital bed or me not being able to. That's not what I want. I want to stay as fit and healthy so I can enjoy life as much as I can, well knowing that things may happen, but at least I did it, and I don't think I'll ever regret it, because I honestly feel amazing about it. It just, this physical fitness goes directly into mental fitness, and it just ultimately means that this may be a weird thing, but I look forward to Christmas a lot more than I've ever done. I changed my family's way of looking at birthdays. Then we're going to celebrate our birthdays. Yeah, it's not just another day and happy birthday and then a cake. We are celebrating our birth. Stuff like this is stuff that I kind of got into after my being like physically fit, went into mentally fit, and it gave me kind of the space to try and change stuff that made me happy. So yeah. So when you're happy, you kind of you wanna keep the feeling and grab the feeling. And Mohammed, so when we were young, we could do a lot of stuff. We had the freedom to be happy at so many things. I mean, we didn't have the economical strain on us. We didn't have the the marriage situation, the kids, and all that responsibility we didn't have. So it was easier for us to grab hold of happiness than it is now. We don't go to big parties anymore. We don't go dancing. We don't go. There's so many things we don't do. So when we finally find happiness somewhere, which I have now, I just want to grab hold of it and keep it, and that's what motivates me.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that, because like for me, like even my kids son like that you don't go out much with friends or whatever. I'm like, my time is for you. Like I don't really have the time. Like you got basketball, you got soccer, you got swimming, and I'm just happy looking at their progress, and I just want them to like keep going, and it makes them happy too, so that's like our thing in our family, so that's in the family, so just keep that going. So yeah, I definitely each family has something, that would they can
Sure.
work on to just make them happy all the time. And yeah, that's great. Yeah. So how's your current fitness routine help manage the stress of entrepreneurship and parenting?
So I started becoming an entrepreneur when I was unfit. So I call everything from 17 to 22 my unfit period. Yeah, that was the period of my life where I was not fit. Yeah, and the period after that was when I was fit. Yeah, so I know how it was to be an entrepreneur when you're not fit, and I know how it is to be fit. The strain of being an entrepreneur is like significant. I mean, there's only one person that can make things happen, and that's me. Obviously, I have a team and stuff like that, but it's not the same thing. Everything is on me. I think it's so I used to work for Danaher, and I used to work for the Lego Group as well, and I used to love it. There's no doubt about it, but there's a vast difference between getting your money automatically every month compared to having to work for it. You still work for your salary. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's just a different way of working, different level of responsibility. And in terms of my health, stress used to hit me a lot more before. I can still feel stress some days, but it's kind of like doesn't hit me as much as it used to. I don't get as tired, I don't get as annoyed as I used to. I have to say that if stress hits me, I have to like pull the string a lot more to get really annoyed compared to before. Yeah, I could get really like kind of aggressive because I was stressed before I got fit, and now I can control it much better. It's like it's just more controllable. What I don't know is that if it's because I'm connected to my body in a better way than I was before, or my mind. But something has definitely strengthened, and I can, stress. I think all of us are stressed. It's just the way that our abilities to control it and handle it is what I kind of learned. Yeah.
They also say like with fitness, it's a stress reliever as well. So it's if you're already exercising and you already got your mind is focused and you got all these endorphins in your body and your brain is like running on that hormone, then you take it a little bit lighter than you would than if you didn't have those hormones. That like it could be anything. So I can definitely relate to that. I see myself even at times where before I've always been athletic, but there were times where I wasn't really into exercise as much, but that also I feel it comes from like life as well. Life teaches you a lot, and through challenges, you can see something that's such a small challenge and anyone else will say that, oh man, that's a huge problem, no, don't worry about it, and just take care of it.
And there's a I don't know how to explain it, and I've heard other people talk about it, and there's probably some medical term for it, but it's as if the pipes in your head grow bigger. Yeah. So like it's as if your head gets more air when you're really fit, and that means that it kind of relieves the input from others. You have just a wider kind of tolerance for challenges, and I mean, the level of challenges I have every single day are like significant when it comes to the kind of projects we do in Africa and Asia and other places. They're significant challenges, and I think that my ability to stay calm and my ability to kind of control and being able to foresee stuff has just vastly improved since I started being fit.
The AA platform addresses a crucial gap in mental health support. What made you focus specifically on workplace performance?
So, I used to work for very large companies, and one of the things that I realized is that we do a lot of performance optimization every single time, like process optimization, like Kaizen and all kind of other things, which are really good and really useful. But very often we neglect the biggest part of change, which is in the mental states of your employees. And we kind of go into process mind because that's something we feel we can control, where the human mind can be difficult. So that was actually why I started looking at like how do we do corporate performance when it comes to mental health? How do we go in and, there may be challenges like stress, anxiety, these kind of things, but even just, how it is. You've seen top athletes. You have two basketball players, same height, same level of training, same schooling, same tactical knowledge and stuff like that. But one of them goes to the NBA, the other one stops his career when he's 25 because no one wants to sign him, or whatever age it is. And it's just some people manage to perform really well at the same circumstances as others, and it's often a mental challenge. It could be an injury challenge as well. I have to remember that, but in general, it can be a mental thing in terms of being a top performer. So I was kind of thinking that since there is a massive gap in the corporate market for mental health challenges, just even very minor ones where people are struggling, there must be a big corridor to fill when it comes to performance. And all these companies, they want to sell more, they want to produce more, they want more markets, they want more and more and more and more, which is just the name of the game right now. But if you want more, you need to ensure that your employees are up for it. That means that you need them to be performing as well as they can mentally. And right now in our studies, I must admit, it's shocking how big the gap is currently. This wanting more and more and more is putting a big stress, and that stress is not being catered for at the company. So that was why we started there. But also commercially, it made sense because companies are aware of this, but they often don't have an outlet. They don't know what to do about it. And with our solution, we could do it very inexpensively and for a wide range of employees. So it's not just cherry picking a few employees, but it's actually being able to run it out to entire departments or into the entire company at a fraction of the cost of what it normally would. So that is why we started looking at it. So commercial reasons, but also because there is just a massive gap, and we want to be where we make the biggest difference, and that's where we are. But also because we know the markets. I mean, I've done B2B sales all my life, so it's just easier for me to kind of oversee that. Quickly, that ended up in looking at different kind of projects in Africa and in other places. In the US, we're doing projects, and other places where there is a gap mentally, like, for example, midlife crisis. You know how it is for midlife crisis is a big thing. Menopause is a big thing. There's lots of things that we need to discuss, and we have trouble like in our lives, but ultimately our corporate performance problems end up very often being our private life challenges. So even if you have a corporate app talking about midlife crisis, it actually caters for them to perform better at work. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it all pointed at a corporate view instead of a personal view. But now we're actually doing both.
As someone who understands both Eastern and Western perspectives on mental health, how do you bridge these cultural differences?
Yeah, so very fast we found out that there are things that you can say and do in some cultures compared to others. And not respecting the cultural barriers is not the right way to do it. So me coming from a Western country with a Western mindset, I can have very clear ideas on certain elements of our lives in Denmark. But that doesn't mean when you go to an African country, an Asian country, or a Middle Eastern country, that corresponds with their views and how they want to live their lives. Yeah. So one of the things that we always do is that when we partner with we go into a new country, we partner typically with a university to do research on cultural elements to make sure everything is culturally adaptable to cultural elements. But I can tell you, Mohammed, I mean, this is not easy. This is why we go to the length of speaking to universities, because the governments there may want to move their inhabitants a certain way. And that means that they may have different kind of views that they would like people to adapt. And there comes like a clash between what the common understanding of a certain thing is and others. I'll give you some examples. They may be a bit extreme, but that's just to underline the problem. Like, for example, the age of when a woman can be married to a man. Yeah, that vastly differs from the countries. Yeah, where we would call probably a 15-year-old marrying a man for a child marriage. Other countries don't see it that way. Yeah. So me with my Western mindset would have a different opinion than what they would have locally. So how do you cater for that? In some countries, you're allowed to have multiple wives. Yeah. So when you speak to the voice bot for mental health about your wife number 2, I can't with a Western mindset go in and say that you're supposed to have one wife. You see what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of these variances that we need to be very careful that we cater for, which is why we always work with universities to do research and find out what it is, and then go away from public opinions or opinions against things, and then flip the conversations to things that they should think about. Yeah. In this situation, you could think about these 5 things, for example, instead of coming up with very clear advice of them choosing between A and B because of the cultural element. And with all our research we've done is that this is the feedback we're getting, that this is the right thing to do. Get the people to understand the consequences and the variances of things that they should think about, and then come up with the answer that they feel is the right one for them. And we go quite deep into that. That's how we cater for it. We do projects here in Denmark as well, and they're much easier for us to handle because we have a very clear idea about what the common opinions are. But then we go into a new country, like we've just gone into Indonesia, for example, and there's a difference between Jakarta and some rural place also in public opinions. So all we can do is research as much as we can, get as much information as we can, and then cater for it, and then structure the response rate in a way that it makes sense for most people.
Oh, that's great. And what role does physical fitness play in your approach to mental well-being?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a bit before. Is that when we're working with our AI, we don't tell people that they should exercise more or do intermittent fasting or anything like that. because I also think that physical fitness, you have to have a certain level of mental fitness to start your journey into your physical fitness. You have to be ready for these kind of things. And I'm not saying that you need to be like fully motivated and so you can just take some steps, but still. So I think that for me personally, my mental state has meant that I was ready to be disciplined about my physical state. So yeah.
Brian, you've built an incredible career as an entrepreneur, and I know you're passionate about helping others through AI-powered mental health platform. Can you tell us more about what your company does? You've already mentioned that, and how it makes emotional support more accessible. So if you want to add a little bit more to that, please go ahead.
So my big dream is to be able to go to countries in Africa and Asia, avail a voice bot for mental health for free, and then generate data based on the questions and the kind of topics that they have. So we fully understand the extent of the challenges and the problems. So of course, these will all be GDPR compliant. So we won't get like privacy, we won't break any privacy elements or anything like that, but it could be really interesting to kind of find out, because this is one of the elements around mental health that we're not seeing. Everyone is saying that it's on increase, everyone is saying that stress elements is going up, there's lots of things that are going up, but if we could start getting it at a country level with real life examples of people that could use this on a general place, I think that would be fantastic, because I think that the outcome of that would be that we are estimating the challenge that we are currently going into. And I don't think COVID helped in any way. I think it just made it worse. The financial situations of going up and down, some countries, political situations and stuff like that it's causing a lot of stress, and it's not going down. So my dream with my company is to build a solution and doing that. Luckily, we're having several discussions with governments right now about taking a project like that and starting to avail it there. And we are showing how that's physically, economically a really good idea compared to what their healthcare expenditure is right now when it comes to mental health. So that's what we do at CoPublica, is that we do large scale project implementations for mental health, but also for social emotional learning, for school systems, as I mentioned before, of the corporate. We work with corporate organizations availing mental health solutions to them. What I want is that I want us to make as big a difference to mental health in the world as we can. And finally, we couldn't have done this in the year 2000, but now in 2025, token cost for AI is going down. Solutions are coming out all the time. People are getting used to AI. They understand it. Our understanding as a company has vastly improved. For example, right now I'm speaking to you, Mohammed. You can hear my English is not perfect, but you still understand everything I say, and hopefully. And the thing is that we understood that our voice bot doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be fully understandable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So even if it does make some kind of challenges, or it's not grammatically fully correct or something like that, it doesn't matter that much as long as the point goes through. And I think that that's some of the learning that we kind of made. So me trying to be a perfectionist, we started at a different place, and then we found out that, hey, as long as we help people, as long as we move people in the right direction, this is what we want. It doesn't have to be perfect. We would love it to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be. So I think that's the end game for my company, is that we get in and speak to like large companies, large school chains, large organizations that are working. For example, we're in discussions with an organization that works with elderly and loneliness. And I know that there's all kind of other solutions coming out for loneliness, but could we just do it on a mobile phone through an app? It would be inexpensive. They wouldn't need to buy any other additional hardware. And if we get someone to support it financially, we can make a massive difference. Yeah. So those are the kind of projects that we're currently doing and we want to do more of.
So if listeners want to learn more about your platform and connect with you, we can share that social media handles and the web address and everything. So we'll have that available on the show notes for listeners to easily find you. Okay. Teenagers, how has your approach to fatherhood evolved?
But yeah, this thing about small children, small problems, and big children, big problems. That's what I realized. When they're typically when they're under 10, it's much easier for you to kind of tell them what to do, or at least you could control or have an oversight of what the next steps are. The minute that the teenagers grow older, they have different kind of problems. Like, luckily, what I've realized is that in terms of fatherhood, you don't have to. So the way that I found out is that I need to let go on a lot of elements and let them figure out the right way to do things, compared to me keeping on telling them, don't do this, don't do that. Instead, just letting go and just letting them make their own mistakes. I think that taught me a lot. So this is one of the things that I really learned in terms of my kids growing up, that when they were really young, you used to be able to control them a lot better. And when I say control, I mean kind of foresee what was going to happen if you did certain things. And as they grow older, it gets more and more difficult, because they kind of get their own minds. But what I quickly found out is that if you let kids grow up and make their own mistakes, even sometimes big mistakes, and then you support them as much as you can, it kind of eases up the pressure on me, but also at the same time, it learns them what is the right and wrong, and also learns them to kind of feel what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And luckily, I still have a relationship with my kids, because honestly, thinking back with my own relationship with my dad, something broke between us when I was younger, and I kind of struggled to kind of get that connection back with my dad that I actually never did. It's not that I didn't love my dad or he didn't love me, it's just something broke, and I've been really scared that something would break between me and my kids. Yeah. So once you've had that feel of a break, it becomes very understandable for you, but it can be difficult to explain to others if you haven't understood or tried that on your own body. So what I try to do is I try to keep the connection with my kids, but at the same time leave them up to kind of make the mistakes and get them to feel it. I'm by no way perfect at all. I mean, I've done loads of mistakes and stuff like that, but this is not to say that, I mean, I probably wouldn't have done a lot differently compared to what I currently did. But yeah, I mean, there's some things that you kind of learn is that, so to give you an example, my kids have never had to do like the dishes or cook or something like a typical Danish family. They would have chores like you have to go out with the trash and you had to do this and that. That's never been a part of my upbringing. And when I speak to my friends about this, they're like amazed that this has never been a part of it. And then they say, but that means our kids are spoiled and stuff like that. And I never saw it that way. But I now realize how big a benefit it actually would be to give them that kind of discipline. Yeah. So some things I think I did them as well as I could, and other things I might want to change a little bit, yeah, because I realized what kind of things that happened when that, and also another thing about money, for example, is that my kids now at their ages have their own like jobs on the side of studying, but that came at a very old age, where in Denmark you're allowed to work when you're 13. That's when you can start having your first job, and most kids go around with like newspaper rounds, stuff like that. Yeah. But my kids started pretty late, and I think this thing about understanding the value of money would have been better if they had started a little bit earlier. Yeah. So these are the kind of things you learn when it's almost a little bit too late. But in general, I've just realized that this kind of supporting role, some would call it a bit of a laissez-faire role, like a bit stepping back and letting them do things, has actually worked really well for me. Also in terms of how busy I typically am at work, it actually worked well when it comes to that. But at the same time, they had never been in doubt that I'm there to support them if something goes wrong, because my dad did that for me for 50 years, and this is what I want to do for my kids as well. Yeah, so that's another thing, like a very practical thing that has changed, which it's so odd for me even to say it, but it's really changed, is this thing about going to university. Yeah, so in my family, every single child was expected to go to university. Like, I've been to university, have a master's degree and all of those kind of things, because that's what you do. Yeah. That's what's expected of you. So that's what you do. And my three sisters have done the exact same thing. And so now my kids are going to the age where they're going into university, they're kind of, I don't know, I was kind of like expecting that that's what they want to do, and then find out that that may not be what they want to do. So my understanding of being a dad was that you have to go to university because that's what you do. This is how I'm programmed, yeah? And found out that my kids may not be happy by doing that, yeah? And their happiness is what's most important. That's what I signed up to when I got them. So if they really don't want to do it, this thing about balancing, is it a good thing for me to start pushing them, or is it not a good thing? I think that's evolved a lot. There's lots of things that still confuse me around these things and keeping the balance, but I can sense that I'm listening to them a lot more in terms of what they want, well knowing that they may not be fully knowledgeable about what they actually want to do. Yeah. So it's always that balance of what is the right thing and the wrong thing. And I don't want to make the mistake of making my right thing their right thing. Yeah. At the same time,
It's their life, it's their journey. You know, you've done your life, you've done your journey. You're at your point where you're still with your business and evolving it and developing it. You know, so yeah, definitely, it's their journey.
and one thing about it is that my son once asked me, like a couple of years ago, he said, "Okay, if you didn't go to university, would you still be able to do everything you've done?" And the answer is unfortunately yes. There's no doubt I would be able to do every single thing that I did. The only one thing that I wouldn't be able to do is probably my first job. Yeah. So I got my first job because I have a master's degree in business. Yeah. That was one of the criteria for me to beat so many other candidates, was because I had that. And that starting point kind of led me off to being able to do what I've done in the rest of my career. So it's a little bit of a question mark if I actually could do it. But honestly, in most other things, yes, I definitely could. And you can still be very happy with your career without a university degree. And me being in education, I find it very difficult to say that. But that's unfortunately a fact. I think I'm a big supporter of schools. I'm a big supporter of universities. And if your kids want to go to university, I would love it. That's great. But I'm just not sure my kids want to do that. So that's some of the struggles that you have as a dad, is that you want to do whatever you can to support them, and not limit them, their opportunities and stuff like that. But at the same time, you know, the ultimate goal is that they're happy. And if they're happy, I'm happy, then I succeeded.
100%. Especially nowadays, you know, things have changed since the time that our time, your time, and everybody's time is. Things have really changed when it comes to you. And for me, like, this is what I say. Like I say, you know, if my kids decide not to go to study, you know what? Education is always going to be there. You know, they can always do it at any time, at any age. You know, it's not a big deal. And that's the thing. Like you said, we were programmed that this is what you do. You get that degree and you get a job, okay? And it's called a secure job, but not necessarily a secure job, right? So yeah, definitely. Now you've touched on a lot of good stuff as a parent, and I feel a little advice of what you've said towards other dads. Like, do you have any advice to give to dads struggling with their mental health while trying to stay strong for their families?
Yeah. One of the things that I kind of learned with my own mental challenges after my dad passed away is this thing about being brutally honest with your family about how you're feeling, and not trying to hide it and stay strong for them. Because staying strong for them is not speaking about it. The best thing would be for you to voice it and make them understand that if you have mood swings, which is very normal when you're under big stress, it's not necessarily something to do with them. So they don't have to go and think about them doing something wrong or wonder what I did wrong and making it their problem when ultimately it's something that is not their problem. So this is the first thing I would say, is this, you know, try to be as honest as you can and explain the situation, and also explain that what you're trying to do about it. Because it ultimately means that in their minds it becomes a temporary thing or something that's going to go over at some point, and not just a fixed part of their lives. I realized that me doing that it gave an understanding in my family that I was going through a very difficult time, and at some point it will be over, or it will be less of a problem compared to where it is now. I think those two things are the most important. But you know, if you're struggling, speak to someone. Just voicing it to someone is makes a massive, massive, massive difference. And even if you feel that the person doesn't understand what you're talking about, voice it anyway. Even if you don't get the feedback that you want or the advice that you're getting, just being able to tell someone how you're feeling, I think you will realize how much it resonates to other people. And often some of the best conversations that I've had have not necessarily been with people that are in the same state. It would ultimately be with people that either have gone through it or just are giving good, solid advice based on a neutral angle. What happens sometimes if you go into and speak to people that are going through the same thing is that it can kind of re-traumatize you, or it could kind of amplify your problems. And many times it's great, but I'm just saying that just being able to voice it to someone, regardless of who it is really strong. And I think that the minute that people get it off their chest, they will see a massive difference. So that's definitely what I would definitely say. And also in terms of work, I know it's not easy, but every good manager would understand mental volatility. So I remember one time when I was working for one of these big companies, the most stable salesperson that we had was actually the most unstable outside of work. Yeah. So the mask he was wearing at work every day just put so much stress on him that one day he just went down in stress and everyone was shocked because that was not the person we saw when he came to work. Yeah. So I think that the best thing is also just make the most important people aware of your situation, and it's temporary. Yeah. It's something that you're doing something about, and make them understand, because we all understand emotional problems. We all, I mean, you know, it's not taboo, and it's not that people won't understand, and people will understand. You know, regardless of what it is, people will understand, because everyone has these kind of challenges, big or small. They may not understand the depth of it, or they might not understand the details of it. But everyone goes through hardship. Everyone goes through pain. Everyone goes through fluctuations of feelings. Everyone goes through self-confidence issues. This is just life. This is how life is. And I think making people aware of it doesn't make you weaker. And I think that's where our problem is, especially in the corporate life, where you have to stay strong. Women have to stay strong because they cannot be seen as emotional in the organization, because they're competing with men that are typically not emotional. And it's one of those things that the world has changed so much. I hope this will change as well. Remember, we're still people, and we might be very volatile in our emotions. That doesn't mean we cannot be top performers.
How do you see technology evolving to support mental health in the coming years?
This is such a good topic, because just looking at any stat, as I mentioned before, there's such a massive gap. The gap is so big, and it ranges from just common problems with a child that has bullying problems, or self-confidence problems, or body shaming issues, or whatever it is, to 60-year-old man that's never spoken about his emotions in his life and his wife passes away. There's so many parts in life where support is needed, and we are not trained in our support systems like families and friends to actually support that much on these kind of things, because that's just not what we do. I mean, we're programmed to be happy, and we have to show we're happy, because happiness is success in other people's eyes. So when people say, "How are you?" "You're always fine." "Yeah, you're always great, fantastic." And you keep on telling stories about how fantastic your life is. "My company is going fantastically. Yeah, we broke records." And this is the narrative that all of us are using, because we know that equals success, and we want to show success to everyone. Yeah. But the storyline internally is just completely opposite for many people. And technology is one of the ways to do that. Like, for example, with technology, you can talk to someone at 4 o'clock at night when you actually or in the morning where you actually have the problem, and not at 12 o'clock when you actually have a spot with a therapist, for example. Yeah, we can do it fully customizable, so your exact problems are are being discussed, and it remembers your problems. It can even give you data. It can show you how well your progressed is, like this data-driven approach where you can see the difference in your mood compared to A to B. I mean, I know people that been to psychologists for 7 years, and I'm not saying that that's not good, and they've got benefit out of it, but it's very difficult to actually measure the differences that it actually makes. AI is not perfect, technology is not perfect at doing that, but it can do certain things when it comes to measuring certain points in your mood and stuff like that, and your breathing and all kind of stuff that you can start doing. So technology is going to make a massive difference. And I think that lots of companies are seeing how big this gap is. And I welcome any competitor to us, because the gap is so big and we need more pools of people doing innovation in this space to actually make a massive difference. And we are seeing so many good solutions coming out there on this market. I would say one thing though is that what we are doing compared to so many of other companies doing, working within the mental space and tech, is that our view is very much on Africa and Asia, the Middle East and Latin America, these kind of places where mass adoption, low cost, this is the focus that we're having. But we had this discussion a couple of days ago with a minister around the future of employability, how employable you have and how mental health is a big part of employability. So in Denmark, for example, we are very much used to working on our brains, where in India or in Africa, they're very much used to using their body when they have to produce stuff. I see a world where we support mental health with technology in a lot of African countries, so they can start being happier, because that's the end goal for everyone, but also at the same time strengthen their mental health so they can make better decisions. And the same thing goes in Western countries. We need to strengthen our minds in a certain way so we can make better decisions for ourselves and our countries. So the playing field is going to be more even when it comes to mental performance, making better decisions, all these kind of things. And all these kind of things are tied to tech, because we can't hire 10, 20 million psychologists. And even if we could, most of the people cannot pay their fees. The public systems cannot cater for them and give mental health at a rate where it's actually one of the things that you should know is that in Denmark, my country, one of the richest countries in the world, if you're a child and you want to go to a public psychologist, there's 2.5 years of waiting for that. Yeah, in one of the richest countries in the world. And then you can have all kind of excuses for why is that. We didn't put out enough psychologists, we don't educate enough, blah, blah, blah. It just still means that we still have 2.5 years waiting time for a psychologist. And if you can point at any child that can wait 2.5 years, if it has significant problems with ADHD or anxiety or bullying problems at school or self-confidence problems, even suicide thoughts and stuff like that. If you can show me one child that can wait for 2.5 years, this is where technology comes in. We need to use technology at its best, and right now technology has never been better. And just looking 1 year or maybe even just 1 month ahead, it's going to be so good that if we don't start now, if we start now, we can actually, even in a couple of months, we can make a significant difference to mental health at scale.
That's amazing. And now, what legacy do you hope to leave your children through your work in mental health and fitness?
This is like a personal thing, but I think all of us think like that, is that we want to make a difference in the world. We want to make a positive difference in the world. And I've done that in other ways, in different kind of projects and stuff like that, where I kind of get the sense that it's me. This, going back to the karate thought, is that, it's me personally who's done something. You can't tie it to a million other things. If I hadn't done that, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And this is the kind of thing that I would love my kids to take that kind of mindset, is that, and it doesn't have to be at scale. Like, I'm very much looking at scale, but even just helping others, making a difference to others, trying to push this world to a better place. Although it sounds, you know how it sounds. But this is kind of where what I think, and I also think that my background of being born in Kenya, seeing how people live, like many of the African countries have gone so far, so far with their education systems and all these kind of things, but still there are gaps, and if I can help bridge some of those gaps with what I'm doing, this is just what I want. We just had a couple of days ago, we had some feedback on one of our users. So we have a feedback function on our system, and yeah, you just have to read one of the feedbacks to understand what kind of difference we make in people's lives, both on a very short term, but also just in general by them being able to voice it and getting advice by someone that doesn't have an opinion. They don't have an opinion about you, sorry. They have an opinion, but they don't have an opinion about you. They don't know you. It's completely, you know, neutral, just giving you neutral advice at any point of their, you know, whenever it's needed, they can give you neutral advice. Just the power of that is so basically strong. So going back to the legacy, I mean, I would love it if my kids kind of took that on, trying to do something that makes this world just slightly better. I would love that. That said, I am very commercial in my mindset. So I also want them to take on that, you know, if you build a sustainable life for yourself, also financially, it means that you have so much more room to do better for if you have to put your fire out all the time, like firefighting on your own life all the time, it means that you have less time and energy to help others. Yeah. So that's also what I hope that they will kind of see. That said, you know, one of the things that I often thought about, because some of my good friends, we discuss this very often, is that, is it a good thing or a bad thing to leave a big inheritance to your kids? Or is it better that they find their own way? Yeah. And I don't know the answer to the question. I'm just saying that this is some of the things that I hope that my way of working and trying to make a difference and trying to build stuff, I hope they take that on and don't even care if they get inheritance, because they know that they can build that stuff themselves.
Great. Wow. So what's your vision for helping other dads maintain both physical and mental well-being?
Yeah. I think getting started with being very realistic about where you are and where you want to go is the starting point. I think working on your mental state first and then going to a physical state is the right thing to do. So building discipline around certain things, yeah? And maybe not, we've all tried it, this thing about going to the gym, getting a gym membership and then never turning up, yeah? I personally don't need to be together with someone to do a training, but other people do. They need to go in teams or with friends or something like that, because otherwise they don't do it. But I think this thing about starting really realistic, like I did, for example, saying, okay, I love food, I love sweets, I love like candies and stuff like that. And I'm still, you know, tied to my Pepsi Max. I need to have it every day. So there's certain things that I know that my life is not going to get better. But that means that if I have to eat as much, I need to kind of control that. So that I started with intermittent fasting. I still do that. But now what I realized is that if I want to eat that food, I need to train more. Yeah. So it's kind of balancing your life. And I think that's the thing, is that start off looking at your mental state, building your mental state, do small changes that you can actually do every day. Like, for example, often people go and buy food at the gas station, you know, every day for lunch. Maybe you should pack your lunch, because then you can control a bit of the calories that you take. That's something that's very easy for you to do, and you will save money as well. But just start off with easy things. Maybe start off with intermittent fasting for, let's say, 6 hours a day. You don't have to do the full hours, but just start with 6 hours. Put it up to 8 hours, and then build the hours, whatever you want to do. And then one of the things that I found was really, really strong, for me at least, is that be happy about the times where you don't do things instead of being annoyed at the times where you do things. Yeah. So if you like cupcakes, you know, be happy by all the times where you didn't have one, compared to the few times that you actually did have one. Because I think if you flip it, and that's what most people do, is that they get really annoyed at themselves when they eat a cupcake. But my problem with that, and my own personal problem with that, is that triggers my need or my wish to actually have more. It doesn't help me. getting annoyed at myself. What helps me is being happy with myself by the times where I just didn't do it. And I think that with dads that are struggling with it, I think that just small mindset change, it did wonders for me personally. Someone told me this on a random conversation on a flight when I flew to Thailand like some years ago. I was speaking like I normally do. I speak to people if they want to speak to me, and we had a really good conversation. And they kind of said this thing, and I kind of thought that made so much sense. And I think since then, that small change just works. And this is actually just my strategy, is that sometimes you start small, you just kind of build stamina, you build discipline, and then the big changes are then much easier for you to take.
Definitely. It's always in the small changes and just getting started and just getting it up there. And even if you decide to eat that cupcake, don't feel stressed about it. You can burn it out and it's fine. You know, whatever is input, there's an output. You know, that's all that matters. Yeah, it's definitely. If Brian can transform his life after a loss, build a revolutionary mental health platform, and achieve his best fitness at 52, imagine what you can do. His journey proves it's never too late to prioritize your mental and physical health. Whether you're dealing with grief, stress, or feeling stuck, taking the first step is crucial. Ready to start your transformation story? Book a call with me today, and let's start creating a fitness strategy that strengthens your body and mind. Remember, as Brian shows us, true strength comes from addressing both your physical and mental well-being. Let's make it happen. Thank you, Brian, for sharing your powerful journey with us. Your story shows that our biggest challenges can become our greatest opportunities for growth and impact. From transforming your own health and creating innovative solutions for mental well-being, you're proving that it's possible to turn personal pain into purpose. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that Brian's AI-powered mental health platform is making emotional support accessible. If you're interested in learning, visit the website, check out show notes for the link. And thanks to BioSteel for powering this podcast. When you're working on transformation like Brian, staying hydrated and energized is key, especially for busy dads. Use code MNYY1417 for up to 25% off your next order. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with a dad who might need to hear this message. Until next time, stay strong, stay resilient, and keep hustling.